It's a beautiful Monday morning right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live on Channels Television right here from our headquarters in Lagos. It's great to have you share your morning with us. We have a packed show for you for the next 55 minutes. First off now, let's kick off with the markets now. I'm starting with oil prices. We see oil prices edged higher today, supported by expectations that major producers will keep supplies tight and growing hopes that the Federal Reserve will leave interest rates unchanged to avoid dampening the U.S. economy. Brent crude November futures, that was up 3 cents at $88.58 a barrel. U.S. WTI, that's trading up also for October, sits up 9 cents to $85.64 a barrel. The slight gains in Asian trade came after both contracts ended last week at their highest levels in more than half a year. Having weakened in the 2 previous weeks. Russian Deputy Prime Minister, he said on Thursday that Russia had agreed with partners in the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries on parameters for continued export cuts. Official announcement with details on planned cuts. We're expecting that later, sometime this week. Russia has already said it will cut about 300,000 barrels per day in September, following a 500,000 per day cut in August. Saudi Arabia is also expected to roll over a voluntary 1 million barrel per day cut into October. And to the edible oil markets now, Malaysian palm oil futures that opened lower today, dragged down by weaker rival oils and the Dalian Commodity Exchange. The benchmark palm oil contract FCPOC there, that dipped right there to about 40 ringgit there. And we see the Malaysian palm oil openers there. It's open on a week there with a weak level there for since we're seeing what's happening in China. Palm oil is affected by price movements in related oils as they compete for a share in the global vegetable oil market. Indonesia said its crude palm reference price for September 1st to 15th period, that's about $805 per ton, which put the CPO export tax and levy at $33 per ton and $85 per ton, respectively, for the period. And over the past 3 months, the Nigerian Exchange Limited, NGX, is reported to be the second best performing stock market in Africa. Congrats. In an official statement released by NGX and corroborated by data from African markets as a leading platform monitoring exchange performance across the continent. In first position, we see the Ghana Stock Exchange claimed its top spot with a remarkable 22.84% gain. The NGX follows closely in second place, having achieved 19.33% increase, while the Malawi Stock Exchange secures the third position with a solid 15.79% rise. Despite mounting concerns surrounding skyrocketing inflation, interest rate hikes, and fragile macroeconomic indicators, we see investors continue to exhibit unwavering confidence in Nigeria's stock market. And now the federal government has issued a 30-day ultimatum to illegal miners to join a cooperative or desist from activities in the country. Speaking during a press conference in Abuja, the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Mr. Dele Alake, explained that that all efforts to formalize unlicensed miners into cooperatives have proved abortive and promise to deploy the instrumentality of the law to defaulters. He further states that ministry will review all mining licenses in the country as part of its transformation agenda. Take a listen.
It is obvious that government strategy for the development of the sector has been driven by the accommodation and mainstreaming of artisanal miners. However, despite these generous and patriotic gestures, there exist still those who have defied all entreaties to join cooperatives and be formalized. They prefer to continue to operate as illegal miners. So therefore, for the last time, let me declare that the ministry is giving such persons 30 days grace to join a miners cooperative or find another vocation to do. On the expiration of the period, the full weight of the law will fall on anyone seen mining on a mining site without a determinable status. This message will be interpreted into Nigerian languages and broadcast on the radio to ensure no one is ignorant of this directive. From October this year, a rejuvenated security regime will become active in the solid mineral sector. This will include the mine police, which I mentioned earlier on, sourced from the Nigerian police and specially trained to detect illegal mining and apprehend offenders. The new Mine Surveillance Security Task Force will coordinate the mines police and proactively address high-risk incidences of breach of mining laws.
Welcome back. Well, the manufacturers' confidence in Nigeria's economy dropped to the lowest level in nearly 2 years. In the second quarter of this year, the aggregate manufacturers' CEO confidence index, that's the MCCI of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, declined for the third straight quarter to 52.7 points in the second quarter from 54.1 points in the previous quarter. Also, data from Stanbic IBTC PMI that shows activity, business activity fell to 50.2 points in August. Well, joining me now for analysis is Mr. Ayodeji Ebo, MD, Optimus by AfriInvest. Great to have you on the show, Mr. Ayodeji.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for starting your morning with us here on Business Morning. But we see there, both indicators are signaling business activity is slowing, but still above the 50-point level. From all indications, we see business was quite tough in August. How are you seeing it?
Okay, thanks. So it's the reality. So if we look at the several factors that continue to weigh down on businesses, you look at from the FX. So for those that were even accessing FX at the official window, we saw a 40% depreciation in that space. You look at also the parallel market have moved by almost 20%, and liquidity is not there. So there's a lot of uncertainty within that space. You also want to look at fuel prices that fits into transportation, cost of production. That continues to also weigh. And as costs rise, it will also impact on the demand. We can see inflation rate at 24% as at July, means that a lot of purchasing power will be impacted, which would reduce the ability for Nigerians to demand for things. So it's really a worrying time and concerning time for businesses. It's really tough times because things are, in terms of cost of production, continue to rise. And that will be impacting on bottom line. And a lot of companies feed more on, when you look at loans to run their business. So you have the cost of finance running and operational cost also increasing. And if you have FX input in terms of having to have, you import items, the cost has increased, and a lot of volatility within the investment space. So I believe that both the manufacturers index as well as the Stanbic PMI index is capturing the reality that is currently on ground.
Yes, I guess it's a tough time for consumers as well, producers, manufacturers, at this time. But what do you see? We're in September now. Do you see the same downturn? Do you see us going below that 50-point level, looking at these indicators in the month of September?
Okay, thanks. I don't think it would go below the 50-point level, but it may go lower or remain around the August level. When you look at the factors that determine the level where the indices in August, we've seen that in this month with the volatility, the FX supply has not improved. and we don't know at what level will it settle for the month of September. Fuel prices, which has direct impact on transportation costs and also business generation, business costs. We don't know if depending on where crude oil prices and FX also level at, if government would also be increasing the fuel price, because it's also based on the last statement. If it's also not increased and most of the factors or the actual costs have also increased, it means the money is also, the funding is coming from somewhere. So at the end of the day, it's zero-sum game. So it's really tough we feel that September is still going to be very tough, given the current position. The demand for goods and services continue to wane down because income is not increasing as much as cost is increasing. As a result, what people have to demand for, they are also reducing that, which would also feed into the production. So if as an individual, the demand used to be like maybe 1,000 based on quantity of a particular item, and now is at 800. It means I may not need the number of workers that I need to produce it. I may have to cut down if that demand is not going up. And you can see the ripple effect, and they are dependent, and that is how it affects activity within the economy. So right. I don't think we're out of the woods, or there's something that will take us out of the woods for this month of September.
Well, and talking about being out of the woods at this point, I checked on the oil markets and I see oil prices still, trending up at this time, $88 and up about 3 cents this morning. And definitely we know how that translates into higher prices, at the pumps. And definitely that gives me a lot of fear, right now, seeing those prices up. But we see current employment condition, as the rate of employment declined to 50.2 points from the 50.7 points recorded in the first quarter, but still remains marginally up at the 50-point benchmark. Then we have that debate about, the MBS adherence to ILO standards with the inauguration of the new Nigeria Labor Force Survey, which, drove unemployment down to about 4.1% in Q1 from 33.3%. So this begs the question, is Nigeria's unemployment rate, in your opinion, is it low or high?
So if we look at, that's based on data, and I've not carried out any study, but based on the current situation, what leads to unemployment? Are businesses expanding? Are they taking more people? Businesses are shutting down. So if businesses are shutting down, it means that the rate of unemployment would increase. Small businesses are finding it challenging to expand. It means that capacity to absorb people into employment or get them engaged is reducing. Even the artisans, so if before you used to have like 2 helps to support you, you may have to cut them down because the costs, you have to increase their cost of transportation have increased. So all those things would have its impact. So I won't want to go into the methodology that's being used, but the reality is that the ability to absorb, to create employment is not there now, which means that unemployment is increasing and businesses are not expanding. Demand for those goods are not there. So there's a lot that needs to be done to be able to increase the capacity to absorb people into the system. I know the government has a lot of plan within the agri sector to see how they want to be able to create employment. So it's until all these things begin to translate into employment that we can see that people are beginning to get more engaged. And that you will see the impact. When more people get more engaged, you will see that impact in productivity, you see that impact in insecurity. And we also look at the poverty level, you will see that it will also moderate.
All right, Mr. Ebo, but talk to me now, what are the potential, consequences of, manufacturers' declining confidence in the Nigerian economy for the country's, overall economic health?
Okay, thanks. We are all looking at seeing maybe foreign direct investment or people coming to investors coming to set up in the country. If the confidence is not there, it means for new investors, they will be more cautious. And as a result, we will not be expanding. There won't be more jobs because they would look at, for those that are currently operating, are they doing well? Are they able to expand? Yes, there may be the opportunity, but you also, that's based on demand for the goods or the gap. But when you look at the costs of producing it, will you be able to, will there be demand for those goods, or will you be able to survive as a company? We saw, when you look at Nigerian exchange, for most of the manufacturing companies, the way the FX devaluation impacted significantly on their books. Yes, we may say, okay, that's based on financial making FX exchange losses, but in actual fact, for those that had access to the I&A window to maybe 20 or 30% of their total FX requirements, now the rate has been, they need more Naira, increase it by 40%, more Naira to be able to either import, look at the telecom sector, setting up buying gens or looking at the equipment that they use. Most of them are in dollars, and it fits into the total cost at the end of the day.
All right. So looking at steps now, if any, that what do you think the government can do right now to boost, manufacturers' confidence in the economy?
Okay, thanks. One, we need the right roadmap. Let there be clarity about what government wants to do for manufacture. We know Nigeria is informal based and is also domiciled mostly SMEs. So we need a roadmap of how we want to take them out of the woods. How can we also provide support in terms of cheaper source of funding? Yes, we know in the past, most of the intervention funds might not have yielded the expected results, but that doesn't mean it is in some other climes. If you put the right control in place, it can create the right support for them if they're able to get loans at a cheaper rate. And security is also very key. If there's stability, there's a need. Once there's stability, there's in the economy, most people will also want to set up factories. And lastly, our export base has to be diversified from oil. There needs to be deliberate efforts. Look at those items that we are strong at, provide funding, and remove all the bottlenecks of exporting outside the country, so that we can begin to generate effects. And once we're able to get that, there will be stability in our Naira, because that's also feeding into everything, because we are import dependent as a country.
All right, Mr. Ebo, so much to do at this point. We need a lot of dollars back into the Nigerian economy at this time to get some strength into the Naira. Thank you so much, Mr. Ebo, MD Optimus by Afrinvest. Thank you so much for coming today.
Always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, after the break, take a look at what's happening in Nigeria's financial services industry. Also, CIBN set to host the 16th Annual Banking and Finance Conference. All of that after the break. Just stay with us. All right, yeah, definitely the D-Day is finally here for a launch of commercial operations for Lagos Blue Rail. We have our reporters on ground. Right there, we have Kelly Giga now to give us an update. Hello, Kelly. Great to have you. How's it looking over there?
Well, Nadi, yes, indeed. As I said earlier, big day for Lagos and, of course, by extension, Nigerians. This indeed is a huge project. But I mean, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to take my time now to try and see how I can do our viewers what we're talking about in terms of travel time and how that affects the Nigerian economy. Take a look at my left-hand side here right now. I'm sure we're panning to the left-hand side. Imagine the people, the residents, the Lagosians still stuck in traffic. Some of them are walking. Some of them have had to use their legs to work. And imagine what this does in terms of the level of productivity of any worker or someone who, of course, has his commercial business or whatever. So it tells you that this project indeed is going to solve one major problem Lagos is known for, the ease of moving around Lagos. I mean, because when you talk, for instance, about the travel time, for instance, from Marina to Mile 2 here takes less than 15 minutes. Less than 15 minutes. And so the man hours that is supposed to be lost in traffic, if residents decide to take advantage of this initiative by the government, it tells you indeed that a lot of challenges are going to be solved. The first phase of this project takes at least 250,000 passengers. 250,000 passengers. And then the phase 2, of course, has another additional 250,000 passengers, making it 500 passengers. Imagine what Lagos would be like when we have the introduction of the red line as well added to the blue line. Nadi?
Right. I definitely can't wait to get on that, and definitely that would help, getting people off the roads at this point and reducing traffic jam right here in Lagos. Thank you so much, Kelly Giga. We'll come later on for more updates from you there. Yeah, definitely. And the Lagos State government, they've warned that no one should cross those rails, so to avoid the risk of electrocution there. So please bear in mind, you're not supposed to cross those rails. So let's continue with the show now. We see financial services that plays a pivotal role in shaping the economic landscape of any nation, and Nigeria is definitely no exception. As Africa's largest economy, Nigeria's financial sector wields considerable influence and responsibility in driving economic growth and development, from banking and insurance to the capital markets and, the fintech innovation. So that's what we're going to be discussing now. And also the CIBN there, they're launching their annual Banking and Finance Conference. So joining me from Abuja studio, I have Mr. Ken Okpara, President of Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Thank you so much.
So can you, elaborate on the significance of the theme, Nigeria's economic growth and empowerment, the role of financial services industry at this time?
Okay, thank you so much. This is the 16th annual conference of the Banking and Finance holding in Abuja, Transcorp, 5th and 6th of this month, that's tomorrow and Wednesday. The theme of this year's annual conference is carefully chosen to reflect the economic reality, the mood of the moment, and how financial services industry can support and play a pivotal role in supporting and growing the critical sectors of the economy. We recognize that there is need to drive economic growth at such a time like this, and also look at the various components that will help in driving that, the payment platform, financial inclusion, supporting the risk sector, infrastructural support, and a whole lot of. And this essentially also aligns with the current administration, basically to lift the people above poverty as much as possible. And so we'll be gathering to discuss this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We need to lift a lot of people out of poverty in Nigeria here. But are there any, special sessions, registered participants should look forward to, at the conference?
Yes, it promises to be a whole lot of attraction and interest to the entire Nigerian society and the entire world. As much as possible, we'll be having 1,000 people physically attending, and then over 10,000 people that will be joining us virtually. Essentially, there are different subject matter experts that will be talking to us. We'll be talking about positioning the payment system, and then, of course, in line with what is happening at the global market and technological changes that is happening. Following up that is also the cyber security and financial crime, because as we also adopt technology, we need to be careful and conscious of the crimes that is also happening around that place and how to manage that. Not just in the financial sector, but also, in every aspect of business. You hear people talking about the fact that you need to give them your account detail, you need to give, who go into the platform as much as possible. There you will see cyber crime experts having to tell you what you need to avoid, what are the things you need to do as much as possible. We'll also be talking about how to unlock the economic growth for this country using the SME. As you know, SME represent a catalyst for economic growth. They represent over 50% GDP contribution, and they employ over 80% of the workforce in this country. So they are critical. So you will see experts talking about opportunities available for SME. How do we build capacity in that area? How do we position them to take opportunities as much as possible? We'll also be talking about monetary policy and financial inclusion. It's important that we build platforms that will support those that are not currently using the conventional banking services and look at the areas where we don't have people using financial services as much as possible. So that's very important. Another area discussion would also focus is infrastructure. Of course, you agree with me that that is very critical. If an economy needs to grow and grow in the quantum, you need to develop infrastructure. Power, and of course the rail, of course you've talked about the transport and other related areas are very critical. They are costs that affect manufacturing and other sectors. So there will be conversation around that place. Of course, we'll be talking about governance and sustainability. How do you be relevant? CIBN is the conscience of the banking industry. We're talking about how to enthrone corporate governance as much as possible. How do we ensure that sustainable banking relating to the environment, green banking as much as also very important. That's it. So these are some of the conversations that will happen at this conference, and we are going to have subject matter experts and of course practitioners converge at the city of Abuja Transcorp to be able to provide relevant conversation around this area and also build capacity.
And I'm sure, organizations and individuals will be looking forward to this. But how can they, participate in the conference, talking about, individuals and organizations?
Okay, essentially, we have provided different platforms. Basically, for those that want to register for this program, they can go to CIBN website, which is www.cibnng.org. Essentially, once you get there, you get the link, very friendly, user-friendly as much as possible. But I can tell you that a whole lot of people are doing this program. It will be streamed live in the various social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and a whole couple of that. So people don't necessarily need to be physically present at this event to be able to have that. So once they register, they will then have access to get business conversation, ideas on essentially the key areas that will be relevant to how they can grow their businesses as much as possible.
Right. Well, one of the many benefits of technology at this point, you don't have to be physically there. You can connect through social media. But what are the next steps or actions that will follow the conference, to build on the discussions and insights gained?
Essentially, that's very important because it's not a talk show. It's basically you will see the various stakeholders, the captains of industry, the financial industry players, and also the fintech players, government, and also the relevant international community as much as possible convert that. At the end of this session, there will be a communique that will be raised as much as this will be given to the relevant stakeholders, and there will be also visits as much as possible, collaboration to ensure that the discussion, conversation that came out from that, the conference are actually implemented. Or even the budget, of course, as we begin to position for the next year budget, some of the deliberation and conversation that are actually coming from that place would also be sent to the key stakeholders. We will have also for the Manufacturer Association, basically, and then of course the exporters, which is required essentially to grow the FX base. We would also submit that. We would also have engagement session with these critical stakeholders, essentially to ensure that implementation is actually taken through.
Right, implementation definitely key at this point. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to the 16th Annual Banking and Finance Conference by CIBN kicking off tomorrow. Thank you so much, Mr. Ken Opara, President, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening with the markets. Now I'm going to be connecting with Anyete for the first time since I got back from holiday.
Good morning, Ladi. Welcome back.
Anyete, what have I missed?
Exactly, you missed quite a lot.
The NGX, second best performing index in Africa at this point. You'll take that. You don't have to be number one, do you?
Well, of course, that feat, the Nigerian stock markets has always been a toast of other markets. It has been ranked as the best performing stock market, I think about 4 times now. So now it currently at a year to date of more than 31%. It's it's not too bad for that. And
yeah, not bad.
I see the market
about 3 months.
Yes, I see that streak extending into the end of the year. We've just started the month of September.
Yeah.
And of course, you see that remarkable from the 15-year high to a new fresh high, which I will give you that detail.
Who's going to be the 70K man?
I wonder.
We don't know yet.
Most likely we'll have a guest to talk about that.
All right.
And of course, I wish everyone could partake in the stock market and make the gains.
Definitely.
Now, this is for the end of August. For the end of August, we will be talking about the equities market, but take a look at your board here for the fixed income market of the Forex side of the market. It was in the upside. We had 100% increase in the total value of transactions carried out there. And that was largely helped by the FX spot market, which had a 33.64% increase on that side of the market. But then we saw a pullback on the forwards side, on the FX derivatives side. That was down by 87.52% at about $0.72 million. But at the end of the day, $555.48 million was traded. And of course, Nigeria's Forex market, it recorded its first accretion in more than 2 weeks. So we're saying thanks to that. And this is just comes after the NNPC had gotten about $3 billion from Afrexim Bank for the crude oil money for oil swaps. Now, take a look at the other side of the market. We saw the Naira. Actually, the Naira was up by 0.08%. In contrast to what it traded before at 772 Naira 7 kobo. From a previous 772 Naira 68 kobo. Sorry for that error on that side of the data there. So that's it for that market. Let's move over to the equities market we were talking about. We've come all the way from 51,595.66 points to, wow, take a look at this, more than a 15-year high, and that's the best so far, the highest so far in the history of the stock market. This is coming after more than 15 years when we saw the global financial crisis, which riveted across the markets, across the world. So now that had an impact on the market 15 years ago, but take a look at 15 years after, 67,000, more than 67,000, and most likely into the 70,000 points. But let's move over to the other side of the market, talking about the activity levels. I was mentioning about the performance of the markets. So far, in terms of value, the stock market has gained 1.41 trillion Naira in just 1 month, which is almost like what we saw in the month of June following the announcement of financial market reforms announced by President Bola Tinubu shortly after, on the day of his inauguration. And then, of course, we see the market continuing to rise steadily from all the way from that figure that we saw, from more than the 51,000 that we saw to about that 67,000. In terms of volume, what we saw as at last week, 3.85% increase in the total volume of transaction, as well as the value that was up by 12% at 37 1.05 billion naira. And that's, of course, we see the market continuing to have an attraction of investors, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. And we will be looking at whether the market is going to start the new month. The month, of course, it began the first day of September, but the new week, we'll be looking at whether the market will continue in that positive trend. Moving over to the other side of the market, we see the sectoral performance all in the green, and most thanks to the banking counter, it was up by 5.11%. That's where the liquidity is. Also, the consumer goods sector, which maintained that bullish sentiment throughout the week, although we saw a little bit of a pullback, but then the market revved back up into the green. And then, of course, what you see here is serious bargain hunting by investors in that market. Now, so what are we to expect this week? Starting from the month of September, we're going to be counting down to the 100 days, the first 100 days of President Bola Tinubu's administration. And of course, we're going to look at how is that impacted? Of course, there's no need to tell us that we know that its first 100 days, the market has benefited so far. We've seen the market performing so much bullish sentiment, although with some sort of a mixed growth, but we see the market being on the upside so far. But we're counting down to the 100 days, the first 100 days of President Bola Tinubu's administration, which will be on September the 29th later this month. Let's move over to the what to expect, the outlook for this week. First, from the bonds market, we're expecting that bonds market, the yields are expected to remain elevated, driven by outlook for sustained imbalance in demand and supply dynamics, as you can see on your board there, as well as the Debt Management Office deliberate actions to keep moderate borrowing cost. That remains a downwards factor for that market. Moving over to the other side of the Treasury bills, the fixed income market, we have the higher yields expected to stay, is going to be low, and that's because inflows into the financial system is expected to be weakened, and then the demand is also expected to be on the weaker side. Later this week, we're also expecting that the Central Bank of Nigeria will carry out its Treasury bills auction, the primary market auction, which is a bi-weekly action that they carry out there. And of course, the CIBN is expected to roll over more than 214 billion worth of maturities for that market. Moving over to the other side of the market, we also see that for the money market, overnight lending rate is expected to trend upwards, barring any significant outflows on that market space. So, Ladi, that's it for the market. Very, very bullish and lots to chew.
And definitely, I know investors that are not invested at this time that miss the perfect entry. They'll be kicking themselves right now. But the question now is, when do you enter? Do you wait for a significant pullback, or is this going to keep going up?
Okay, I want to ask another question. What about is there a possibility of a 70,000 points mark?
Right.
And also at the same time, is there a possibility of the market crashing all the way from there? So, this will be on the minds of investors, because
crash is a strong word.
Free entry and free exit. I was one of them that thought, no, this is not the time to enter the market. But unfortunately, that was not a wise decision.
Nothing goes up forever, really.
Exactly.
We'll keep tracking. Thank you so much, Anita, giving us details there from Nigeria's stock market and other unlisted markets. Let's head on now. Let's take a look at what's happening in the UK. We have Juliana standing by right there. Great to have you, Juliana. So we see Jeremy Hunt back in the news there. He's confident his plan to reduce rising prices is working and will soon ease financial strain for UK households. Talking about halving inflation. What are you hearing about this?
Yeah, good morning, Laddie. After 6 weeks of a summer recess, Parliament is back in business today. So we're seeing a slew of MPs arriving in the Palace of Westminster. Of course, cabinet ministers are also arriving in Downing Street. And preceding this weekend, the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, has been doing the media rounds, talking about the big topic of this autumn, which is likely to be inflation/recession. We know that inflation in this country has trickled down from some of the peaks that we saw in October last year when it was at 11.1%. It's come down to about 6.8%, but the Chancellor has warned that perhaps there could be an increase because of an increase in public sector pay. Now, one of the reasons why there has been a long-running battle between the government and public sector workers is because of inflation. They didn't want to pump. Apologies, Laddie.
Sorry about that.
I don't have any water there. Do you have some water for me? Yes, they didn't want to pump too much money into the system because this would increase inflation. So he does suggest that perhaps the next Office for National Statistics data we have that looks at inflation could see a bit of a rise, but it is just because of this public sector pay.
Right. Thanks so much, Juliana. I'm going to allow you to get some water there. Sorry about that, but it's definitely a brand new week right here. Definitely a lot of data is going to be coming out from global markets. And right there in the UK, I know there's going to be some economic data coming out that's going to move the market. What are you seeing coming this week, Juliana?
Well, the big one, of course, has got to be G20. I've seen some official pictures this morning, so we know that there is a huge Nigerian delegation that's already arrived in Delhi. Lots of pressure on the Honourable Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun. I know that he's in town. Of course, the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will be there. This is a big one for Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister, because, of course, he's Indian, and he has a very close bond with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is the first time in history that India is going to be hosting the G20 summit. Some alarming news over the weekend is that the Chinese President Xi Jinping will not be attending. He's going to be sending, I believe, his vice premier. That's raised a lot of eyebrows in the Western mainstream media, but I suppose it depends on how you look at it or where you sit in geopolitics, because, of course, we know that last week Modi and Xi spent lots of time together in South Africa during the BRICS summit. So we know this week lots of focus is going to be on the environment and some sort of debt management service for developing nations. So yeah, lots of sound bites are going to be coming out of Delhi this week, really impacting what's happening in the region of ECOWAS and, of course, what's happening in European geopolitics. So it's going to be very, very interesting, and it's going to keep us very busy, Laddie.
Yeah, definitely going to be a very busy time this week. We'll definitely be watching out for that. And we know you're going to bring us those updates. Thank you so much, Juliana.
Thank you.
All right, now let's head on to other markets. Now let's take a look at what's happening in the crypto market. Fresh, brand new week right here, but we see Bitcoin there, $25,966. Dominant sitting at 47% there, 68. But it's a mixed picture. That's what we have right here. Ethereum, the red, Bitcoin in the green. Looking at Coin360, telling us the color of the market right now. So it's quite mixed sentiment we're seeing right now. Let's look at the sentiment there. We see it's obviously still neutral or something, but we see cryptocurrencies we track here. Bitcoin, $25,966, up marginally there, 0.09%. Yeah, that was about 8 a.m. this morning. Ethereum, $1,600. That was on the flip side, down 0.08%. BNB, that's the native token for Binance Exchange, that's up 0.05%. Not been able to get back to that $300 level for a while now. Cardano, 25 cents, up 0.21%. And we see XRP there still hanging on strong to this 50 cent level after breaking about 80 cents on that winning case against the SEC in the US. Up 0.61%. So let's take a look at what we could expect or what we can expect for this market and Bitcoin price action in this month of September. Joining me now, Eleman Damble, joining me from the UK. Hello, Eleman. Great to have you.
Oh, hey, Lottie. Thank you for having me as always.
Fantastic. Always great to have you, Eleman. So I know you're going to look at your crystal ball, which are the indicators, and you're going to tell me what you're seeing for September for Bitcoin price action. Are we in overbought or oversold level? What are you seeing?
Yeah, no, I think last week in particular was pretty interesting. Of course, earlier on in the week, we saw a rise in Bitcoin, of course, climbing over 28K after Grayscale, the asset manager, of course, won its ruling against the SEC. So that kind of gave markets a bit of optimism. Since then, the optimism has somewhat faded, and of course, we are starting September relatively oversold. So prices are oversold, which in a way is a positive for longer term bulls looking to take prices a bit higher as the month goes on.
And looking into September, are you seeing this oversold level? Are you seeing investors, maybe taking advantage? Are we seeing some volume, coming in?
Yeah, I think with trading, whether it's crypto, whether it's crude oil, whether it's gold, you always need to look at what has happened historically at a particular time. And historically, towards the end of August, start of September, and as September goes along, we have historically seen a lot of bullish pressure. So with prices being oversold, with that history having the chance of repeating itself, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of bulls lurking in the market, aiming to take price back above 30K.
But do you see risk for more downside, price action for Bitcoin and Ethereum?
With Bitcoin in particular, I think there is a chance it falls below 25K. So the lowest it has reached recently, of course, we saw June 14th, it dropped below that 25K level. So there is an opportunity for that to happen. But again, you have to look at the volume, especially the RSI. In recent times, we've seen it trend below 20, where typically below 30 is oversold. So it has been extremely oversold in recent weeks. So even though it can continue to fall, there is a limit to that. For like I heard you say earlier on, there's only so much the market can go up. But the same works the other way around. There's only so much the market can go down. So I think that logic kind of is in play with BTC. I do believe it could potentially fall and consolidate a bit more. But I think that would be probably around 24K should be the next floor.
Yeah, definitely. We still have that debate right now. Some say the bull market is over. Some say, what bull market? We've been in a bear market. But some will say, zoom out, from the charts, and then you see the true picture. I don't know if you've zoomed out lately, but what are you seeing? Is this still a bull market, or was there a bull market in this market?
I think in this market, it would be hard to say it's been a bull market. I think for the most part, the market's been in consolidation. So even if you zoom out, you can see there are still some levels to be broken. And in particular with Bitcoin, you're looking at the 32K mark. When that's broken, then I think you could probably start looking more towards 40K. In terms of Ethereum, of course, we saw as early as pretty much the mid-July, we saw prices at 2K. So I still believe there is optimism for ETH to head back towards 3K, 4K as well towards the end of the year. But again, it's a case of the conditions, the market conditions now, what's happening in the US with the Fed, what's happening with inflation globally. So I think once some of those conditions start to fade is when we're going to see a return of investor and trader confidence.
And definitely, I'm wondering what's going to happen this week. Are we still going to see some sideways action, or is there some potential for a spike this week?
Yeah, and I think you have to look at this week from the perspective of last week. Of course, we had GDP from the US, we had non-farm payrolls, we had consumer confidence. So there was a lot of economic data all coming out at once. So that did lead to a lot of market consolidation. This week, we aren't seeing so much in the form of economic data. There's a few headlines here and there. Of course, today markets in the US are closed with Labor Day celebration and things of that nature. So typically when you do have
Right. All right. Okay.
Events such as holiday views tend to rally on the Tuesday once they do reopen.
Right. And I wonder, because Bitcoin never closes, Ethereum doesn't close, hope maybe there might be some kind of interesting price action today, even though there's a holiday in the U.S. Thank you so much, Element Dambo, financial market analyst. Always great having your perspective.
Cheers. Thanks so much.
All right, now let's take a look who's topping the gains chart now. CRPL, that's up 13.10%, $24.68. XLM, yeah, that normally follows XRP, but today doesn't seem like it's following XRP at this point. It's up 6.97% at 12 cents. Historically, that has always followed the XRP. Maybe XRP might be the one doing the following at this point. Arbitrum, that's 2.74% up, 91 cents. Let's look at the top. Loses this morning. Gala there, that's for the metaverse, down 8.23%, 1 cent. I was trading above 20 cents at some point, but see the market downturn, taking most of that profit we saw there. Hedera hash graph, that's H bar, 4 cents, 3.41% down. And we see MakerDAO, $1,093, but it's down 2.86%. So we're seeing the market looking more bearish than bullish at this point. We're still seeing a lot of profit taking right now, but it's a holiday in the U.S. Let's see what happens when the U.S. markets open tomorrow, if it's going to reflect on the crypto market. Well, that's a wrap on the program. Don't forget, join us at 1:30 for Business Incorporated for more updates and developments in the world of business. Remember, you can watch this again on our YouTube channel. Flip over to YouTube, search for Channels Television, click on our videos. You can watch all our productions. Thank you for watching again. I'm Ladi Williams. Enjoy the week.